Welcome to Your Life Matters Soul Connection podcast with your host, none other than Junie Squadron. And today I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Anne Ljungberg here with us today. So I'm going to share a little bit about Anne, and you're going to be very excited to listen to this podcast, especially if you are thinking of changing tracks, if you're retiring or you're just looking at another part of your career and moving in a different direction, but you kind of build a legacy for yourself. Anne's the woman. So Anne is totally unique in that she has been a true digital nomad since 2002, almost 2 decades of living and working on a sailboat all over the world, growing her business from a sweet hobby to a small empire, helping thousands of writers, experts, and entrepreneurs in more than 30 countries. Anne is the founder of Expert Coalition, a place where her clients who are experts in their given fields learn how to create their legacy business so that when they're ready to retire or move on to something else, all that they've created throughout their career will continue to live, grow, and flourish. Truly, that is pretty awesome for a lot of us who have been in our fields for a lot of years, and we're ready to move on and know that it's just not going to die on the vine. I'm so excited about that. So I'm delighted to announce that Anne has a brand new Clone Your Business training program that's coming up this month, which I am so excited to be a part of. So again, if you're considering cloning your expertise, you don't want to miss this call. So register for it right away. All right. So welcome, Anne.
Oh, thank you so much, Junie. I'm really excited to be here.
Fantastic. So, I've been considering passing the torch for some of my programs that I've been delivering for almost 3 decades in order to have more time to write my books and etc. So I'm very excited to tell my listeners, many, if not most, are entrepreneurs themselves, about what you do. But you know what? Before we go into your certification process, I'm interested in knowing what it was like to build a business from a sailboat while circling the world. I'm faced with enough challenges establishing and growing my business on land, let alone on sea. So please tell us about perhaps how you came to doing this and some of the things you've learned about yourself and doing business along the way.
Oh, yes, I've learned a lot, I must say. And actually, I'm pretty happy that I didn't have any clue about what was, starting a business was all about when I started on my sailboat. My husband and I left Sweden in 2002 to go cruising, and we dreamt of this for such a long time. And we both had high-power jobs in large corporations. And we didn't know even how long we were going to be out. Maybe 6 weeks, maybe 6 months, maybe 6 years. After 1 year of doing nothing but cruising, being a tourist, watching all those ruins, we started out in Europe. I realized that I really wanted to continue this lifestyle, and B, I wanted an intellectual challenge. I didn't just want to be a tourist for the rest of my life. And also we had spent a great bit of our savings that first year. So we also needed to sort of add to the cruising kitty, as people in my sphere call it. So I decided to see if there was something I could do to make myself more useful. And I wrote long lists of everything that I was interested in or that people needed, which could be anything. I could walk these people's dogs.
Right.
I was cutting my husband's hair. Maybe I could cut others. No, maybe not. And things like that. And it came down, that process was so interesting, just going through everything, everything you've ever done in life, everything that inspired you. And it came down to my greatest hobby, which had been writing forever.
Well, you and I have a lot in common on that level.
We do. And I had been like passionate, or even even more than that, about words and letters since I was 2 years old.
Wow.
I have
Wow.
I have a very silly story about this. I didn't
Please tell us.
realize
We
at
love
the
silly.
time.
I love silly.
When I was 2 years old,
Uh-huh.
I was in this crib bed, and my dad would wake me up and give me my formula, and he would stick me his Playboy magazine, which which he and I would read purely for the articles.
Of course you did. Of course you
So
did.
I would print up and I would ask, what letter is this? And they would tell me that's a D, or that's an F, or that's a G. So I learned the alphabet out of Playboy.
Playboy. Well, I would say you're probably the only one that probably has ever done that. I think that could be a claim to fame. It's pretty unique. That is
Right now,
hilarious.
I can't even believe my dad did that. He was a pretty sensible man at times, but at least I got involved with the word business. So I started this business. I became a book consultant. I I helped people reading their manuscripts before they sent them to publishers. And fast forward, I had helped thousands of writers in Sweden just finding their voice, finding their courage, finding their
Mm.
book ideas. And I loved it. But I was also getting a little like, oh, I cannot read one lousy manuscript more.
I hear you.
And at the same time, people had asked me, Anne, how can I learn to do your work? I want to read manuscripts. I want to help people with their books. I want to work just like you. So after it took me a couple years to figure the whole thing out.
Right.
Because first I thought, because in Sweden, when I started out, I was the first Swedish writing coach. Number
Really?
one, yes, in
Wow.
2003. There were none. There were some that were manuscript developers and so on, but no writing coaches. And and we were all a little like possessive of our own things. No one shared a single secret. So people would get into the trade and start helping writers, and we never shared anything. So my first thought was, of course, I will start teaching people one by one all my secrets. And then the day when it struck me that, of course, I will do this in a group setting, that was my luckiest day ever, I think, because that was just the key.
Fantastic. I love how these ahas just kind of kick in eventually when you do something long enough. And it's like, that is a key. That will make it so much easier. So what was it then that made a bigger difference for you? Or what was so cool about your luckiest day realizing a group was better than a one-on-one? How did that make a difference?
It became even better than I imagined. So I went out to my list of followers that were mainly writers or people who wanted to work with writers. And I asked them, would you want the fast lane to becoming a book coach like me? And I told them all in a webinar all about how they could do this themselves.
In a webinar.
Yes, I did a webinar, one webinar. And I told them everything about how you could do it yourself, how you could speed it up by working with me. I also told them what it would cost. which my back then my American coach had told me, never tell your high tickets in a webinar. You need to do discovery calls with them all.
Uh-huh.
And my stomach turned because I don't like selling on the phone.
Okay.
So I decided to be a little disobedient. So I told them, and I also no, because these were all Swedish people. I
Yes.
told them they want transparency. So I told them the cost. I told them about the payment plan. I told them who they needed to be and what they didn't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of seeded out in the webinar who I wanted to talk to. And then I said, if you're interested, you know all the terms here, book a time with me and we'll see if you're fit for the program.
Well, that would take a lot of time off from the going one-on-one after, because a lot of people, once they hear all the criteria that is necessary, right, they could say no. But when you have it up
Yes.
front like that, it's like, yeah, like you say, it's those people who are really interested will book that call to go the next step.
Yes. And it was really getting into that conversation, which is so
Right.
important. And
It's
out of the
vital.
people who actually booked calls with me, 100% conversion.
There you go. No,
Mm.
I totally understand that. It's the same for me as a book coach. You know, I have my author mentorship program, and once I have a conversation with people, and I care, I mean, as a author myself, I know what it takes to write a book, and it takes a
Mhm.
lot. It's not for the faint of heart. And for people to be a coach to do this sort of thing, that's so exciting for me now, because I'll get in your program to learn how to translate what I do to help others, because after a while it becomes intuitive, right? And
It
for a
does.
coach, right? So it's like breaking it down, which I kind of had to do when COVID hit, because then I had to put my author mentorship program online. So I
Mhm.
had, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? It's very time consuming, because you just do it after a while, after years and
Yeah,
years.
and it's so useful getting that down. And I remember, so when this course was starting, so this was my first attempt at creating a certification course. I
Oh,
was
what
in
course?
a
Oh,
certification
certification.
program.
Yes, thank you.
So I was sitting in a cafe in Paris early in the morning, getting my coffee, having my great big notepad and writing down everything I needed to teach them in a 6 months program.
Okay.
And I already had the framework, but I needed to okay, I know they're going to have to learn all this, but what is it that I know that I'm working with my clients, but never telling them, because they're getting the results because of the knowledge that I can share, but I'm not telling them the tricks. I'm
No,
not
you want to make
teaching
it
them to become book coaches. I'm teaching them to become great authors.
right. And so that process is seamless. You want
Mhm.
it to be just so they'll get, like you say, the results of how to do it. And you know how to do it. You don't have to share how you're doing it. Unless, of
No, but
course,
I
you're,
realized
no,
with
but it's a
yes,
facilitator teaching them that. That's different.
yes, with this group, I needed to front load them with everything I had in my
Totally.
brain, down my spine.
Yeah.
And I think also one of the keys really is when you're going through, you're creating your own certification program out of your expertise, to make sure that your students will really understand the process, be immersed in it, and getting through it with the trust that you want them to feel, the confidence that you want them to feel, and the trust you want your clients to feel working with them. Uh,
Let me ask you, can anybody certify their programs, or what is some of the things that you would look for, or ask them to be like? What qualifications and what do they need in order to? Can anybody do this and learn it, or how does that work?
pretty much anyone could, but I would back up and say, if you are an expert at what you're doing,
Right.
you have developed your own system, process, method, or you have a unique skill, you are the go-to expert in your field, and you have proven results with your clients,
Mhm.
and you have made sure that your expertise is scalable,
Tell us what you mean by that.
that you can take your expert method and go to one client, work with that method, see that work, go to the next client, use the same method, see that work.
Mhm.
And so many of us coaches and consultants in the expert field, we're intuitive. We
Mhm.
listen. We're great at getting into our clients' worlds. And we think we have a method, but really it's just our intuition and our intelligence and our great skills that help them forward. And if we only do that without sort of documenting and making sure that I can actually do something that I can repeat, that I can save time myself, that I don't need to go through, oh, a new client, now what? Uh, that's what I mean with making it scalable, that you have something that can be cloned.
Exactly. I mean,
Mm.
I honestly, before COVID, um, and realizing that, like so many other people in the world, we had to kind of reinvent ourselves and or do something different in order to just keep the business alive. I learned so much about all the things that make my program special. And it is about breaking it down and, oh yeah, I do this and I do that. And I don't, like you say, if it's intuitive, you don't necessarily even think about it. It's just in the moment. But when
Mm.
you do break it down, you realize, yeah, that's a part of it. They need to know that. They need, and it's the sort of thing that you can teach that makes it results oriented. It's what makes the person have a program that they can give to anybody that wants that particular program.
Yes. And I still don't mean to make it so formula-like that it will be such a formula that you could just put in the hands on it of anyone and say, okay, I'm done. You go do it.
Mhm.
Uh, because you still need to teach the
Mhm.
intuition part, the
Mhm.
listening part, the reaction part. If I do this and then my client does this, now what?
Beautiful.
Because if it's only the formula, you could do what so many successful entrepreneurs are doing. You could make an online course or a course in person and just teach clients and they'll be happy forever.
Mhm.
The people I'm talking to are, they might be doing this. They
Mhm.
might be having courses or group coaching programs, but they'll find that there's still people who need a chunk of their time.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
That
And
makes total
that
sense.
if you're only you, that's so hard to scale. And another reason to create your program is, like you're saying, if you want to retire, you want to do other things, you want to leave all this good things that you've created to other people, create a program so other people could coach, teach, consult in that method.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Well, just from working with you one-on-one, even before the program that I'm about to embark upon, I've learned so much just in that way, in terms of the people that I can call in and who've done my program in the past, right? They've already gone through it. And if you're going to, and so they may want to, in fact, teach it. And most of those people are already either therapists or coaches or healers. I mean, there's certain criteria and qualifications that I would look for. And so for me, it wouldn't necessarily, it would be they would go through it in order to learn it and see what comes up for them first. And And then whatever it is they're doing, it's kind of an adjunct program to what they're
Exactly.
doing.
I mean, you don't have to teach them to become therapists.
Right.
You can have that as a prerequisite and add a very important tool that
So
they
what is,
can, in their turn, add their expertise. They may be working in different niches. So for
yes.
my book coaches that I was teaching, some of them would love to work with people who are writing their memoirs. Others would work with people who are writing romance novels or science fiction or fantasy or crime or just fine literature.
Right. Right.
Mm,
What would you say are some of the obstacles, like some of the that you found over the years teaching people
yeah.
to certify their programs? What are some of the things that that those that are becoming certified, what are some of their obstacles and challenges that can come up for them that are more general?
Mm. One is that you, as the certifier, you will need to think through, who am I going to be once this process is finished? Am I still the one go-to expert standing
Mm,
alone on my mountaintop now that I've sort of flattened out that mountain and probably raised it too, because I have a whole tribe of people that are experts and that can help my clients in that way. But who will I be? Am I okay with shifting my identity from the go-to to being part of this tribe, or am I leveling up and being like the real CEO of my brand and working together with these people to help them get more clients? Or will I step out? Will I retire? Will I sell my business? Will I give it away to my consultants that I've trained? Will I give it to my kids? Will I create my legacy this way? And what happens with my identity? Who am I going to be when I move on? That's one thing. Are you willing to let go of being the expert?
that's so phenomenal. I mean, I wouldn't have thought about that um, necessarily in the ways in which you just described it, to think about it that way. I mean, for me personally, I've been facilitating a group called Rewrite Your Life forever. It seems it's in, when I started, I called it at the beginning, it was um, Sacred Stories Celebrating Your Life Journey. And then when I wrote my book, Rewrite Your Life, that's the name of the book. And so it just became the same name as the course, made it easier. And then I've been having it online just as a self-study course for a long time, for a lot of years. And I haven't put a lot of energy into it, but it's worked really well. I mean, it's got social proof. I mean, it's been thousands of people have taken it over many, many years, couple of decades. I'm so ready to pass on the torch
Great.
and
Yes.
to let it go. But I could see that maybe, and you're the expert in this, maybe those people that I train to facilitate, maybe there's some way of well, there would be, I'm just thinking out loud, as to be a supervisor for a while, to be until they're really steady on their feet if they need it, because I'm thinking that the training itself that I would be providing would be enough, um, since they're already, they would fit the criteria of what I would want in a facilitator to do that course. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be, I can't see myself standing at the mountaintop and I'm the one that's, no, I'm not interested in that. I want to write more
Mm,
books and do other things.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I
And you're
also want
mentioning,
to, yeah, they're just saying, but I would want to certainly be available if needed.
yeah, and that's an important thing too, because after they have graduated from your training, they're certified, and they might have become a very heterogeneous group, their best network that they could ever find, instead of becoming competitors because they're actually working on the same thing. But if you want to keep that good network feeling, you might want to, even if you're not the one maintaining the group after, but to appoint someone who could be the community manager for the people who are
Brilliant.
certified.
Oh, of course. I've never worked in corporations, but I can see how that would be part of how they do it. Right? So the person at the top is, they delegate. And that's what I would do. I would have somebody be that. So I don't, so I could be
to delegate and to set the framework of this is how we work together in this network. Really set the ground rules, not to be a dictator, but to make them feel very comfortable in the framework and not starting to create their own different kind of rules, because that will create chaos in the end.
Right, right. So what's the difference between a certification? Well, this is about programs, and I'm thinking about what's the word when people like the McDonald's or all of those, and they're franchised.
Oh, franchises, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Is there a similarity there?
There are similarities, and we're coming to the scope of there's licensing, there's certification, and there's franchising. And with licensing, it's like, I have this training program. Here, you get the license to train that too, and I'll give you a train the trainer thing. You get exactly what you need to do, and you can't really change that. And that goes even more into the franchising. I mean, don't change the topping. There's supposed to be a bun on top and then the lettuce and whatever. If you change that, you're going to breach the franchise agreement. So that's really cloning a product, a whole brand. Even though I must say I have had a beer with my McDonald's in Greece and a glass of wine in France. So there are local variations.
Right. You know what it reminds me of? I love that. Yeah, well, tell me what I need to do and I'll do my own version. But you know what it reminds me of? When I was in my 20s, I worked as a copywriter for Reader's Digest. I was hired there to be a copywriter. Well, I also got fired because they said we have a tried and true formula for what we do. And you should be in an ad agency. This is the way we do it here. And they were right, because I think out of the box, and I thought, my ideas, of course, I would think they were brilliant. They probably were not, but they were different than this. Some people are okay just following the rules and just as they are, and don't want to be bothered being, an entrepreneur creative.
But I think I have a pretty good example here. Take a large software company like Microsoft. They sell licenses in shape of software to people and to large organizations. So let's say a organization buys into their database software. Then you can get a certified programmer who is certified on that database program, and they can come in and tweak the program so it suits exactly the needs of the organization. So that programmer will need to know exactly how to work the program and also to use their brain, listening to the client, doing the consulting, really matching brains and program, and that would be the certification part. You know how to work the program, but you also can add expertise to that.
Right. And I see the translation or the transfer where with what I do, and I think other people in my field as therapists or coaches or healers would take a program and then put their own when they actually, I mean, the program is one thing you can, you know, but the other thing is actually being with the person, listening in the way in which you teach
Yes.
them to listen.
Doing the coaching, doing the therapy, that's the certification part. The other is licensing the material, which could
Yes.
definitely be part of a certification program.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about how the process actually works? Like, how do you do that? What are the things that in this, how do you break it down?
Yeah, so the first thing, make sure that you have an expertise that is scalable. You know it works. The second thing, go through step by step by step by step everything you will need to teach in order to bridge the gap between what you're telling your clients and what you actually know.
Give us another example of that, if you wouldn't mind, because it's
So
almost invisible.
yes, so let's say you have your book and your course for doing this healing writing. But what you need to tell to people you certify is, how will you deal with this in a situation where you're actually going to give them response on what they're writing?
Lovely. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And them being therapists, you don't need to go into like, you know, this is a person and when they talk, you do this. But you know exactly what kind of situations come up, what part of their toolkit they need to bring on to be able to give really good support in the situation. And that's what you're going to be teaching them.
Yes. And I think that's a wonderful thing when you actually help somebody, you know, all of the people who are choosing to facilitate, once you got into that place and we know who's in the program, that they go through it themselves. So they themselves get to see what comes up for them and how I do it with them, right? Yeah, as well, so that they can see as things get maybe triggered or whatever, or the questions that come up, it's all part of it. So what else is part of
And
that?
so that's really part of the next step, that
Ah.
what kind of trust points are you going to put into your program to make sure that you can trust your students, your future experts, and that they can feel trust in the process? So maybe they will need to do some case studies. Maybe they will need to do showcases. Maybe they need to write an essay or do interviews or really work with people in real life situations going through your program. So adding the trust points, because they will be a big part of your certification process. They need to pass a certain degree of, you might want to call it tests. So what are the tests going to be that you say, okay, you've done the program yourself, you've worked with X amount of clients, you've proven to me that you understand the process, you've written this test, now I'm ready to graduate you and give you a certification.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yes. We have certain criteria for each part.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, that makes sense to me. And how long would that process take?
It really depends on the depth of your program. I mean, I see some people doing certifications on software where you can actually go in and learn the software in 2 or 3 days. And then they get the graduation. What I would do in that case is, yes, sure, you could get the first level graduation proving that you know every button you need to press to get this up and running. But you might also want to add, okay, you need to work with 2, 5, 10 clients make sure that they can go through the process. Let's say it's a software where you can set up a virtual summit. I mean, in theory, that could be pretty easy. I know exactly all the components I need to do to set up a virtual summit. But now I have a person here, a client. I'm going to help her to create the virtual summit. She's going to need to talk to a lot of speakers to come in, and they need to add all their bios and their images and their speech topics, and they're going to be there on time, and are we going to do pre-recorded, or they're going to go live? They need to set up that entire program. And if they can prove that, yes, I've actually helped 5 very non-tech clients to create very successful virtual summits, I'm certified.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. So it makes sense then that the people who are going through it, depending upon what skill level they're at, they'll
Yes,
know.
because I mean, in the case of my example here, they might be brilliant at tech and they know exactly how to work the program, but now they're also, if they're going to help people, they're going to need to know how to work with people.
Exactly.
And that might take some other skills.
Right. Right. So when, yeah, I got all these questions in my mind. What would it take? So for people who have, let's say, a self-study program already built in line, I think that you have an advantage, right? Of either continuing to have that, and yet, like, for instance, if the person, like, okay, I'll just use me as an example because it's something I learned from you. It never occurred to me. I have this program already online. And so so people could do both. You know, my trainers can do both. They can, you were talking about an affiliation or affiliate program that might work for the, both the new facilitator as well as myself, who has the program there. They can do the program live with people once we're allowed to do that, and but they may not have all of the people in their niche in their area, but they're not limited online. So online they could still do this and then do the one-on-one coaching if the client wants that. Could you expand on that? I'm not sure if I understood it completely.
Yeah, and I have been working with course creators, and about a year ago, a man who had a course on how to create courses approached me and said, I want to create a certification program on this. And my first thought was, okay, he wants to train traders, because I knew he was always doing this class, even it was online. He did like live classes online. So he was always teaching. And I thought, okay, if you have more teachers, you can reach more clients possibly. But no, that was not what he wanted to do. He wanted to make sure that his students were actually making it all the way through the course. So he wanted to certify mentors who would work with the students and do a done with you program. So if they got stuck anywhere, they would have this certified mentor with them who could work with the tech, work with the strategies together with them, so they could finish with a great result. And I think that's a great example.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing a little bit with you, because you have your online program that people could absolutely use as a self-study. And if they're very self-motivated and they get into the flow of writing and using all your wonderful exercises for writing, many people could go through that themselves, while others would just feel lost after even the first exercise and not get the motivation. If they have someone going alongside with them, someone coaching, someone who is keeping them accountable, listening,
Well, to me,
confirming, you know.
right, you can almost not even put a price on those things, because just in terms of the keeping a person accountable to show up, because I know for myself, there's been dozens of more courses that I've paid for, and then life gets in the way. And even though I was just so enthusiastic to begin with, I had somehow it just trailed off, and I'd have one reason after another, more excuses. And
Mm-hmm.
even when I've been writing my own books, and I've written several now, I've needed my own coach, and I've loved that. I've needed somebody to stay accountable with. And that's been really important. And so, even with my last book, Your Life Matters, and it's all about writing memoir, um, the and then it, it's so needed. I have these live groups on Zoom these days for the last year and a half, and when I did it live before COVID, etc., people love that. I love that. There's a reason to show up, and you complete it. And especially when you're working, in a group with other people, and
Mm-hmm.
you're healing. There's a tribe. You feel the connection. So many people have become best friends, and like you said, it's no longer competitive. It's cooperation together,
Yes.
support together, and it's so important. It's so important to have that person who's listening, who cares, who writing, especially if you're writing to heal and doing those stories that have caused you pain in the past, and you want to go beyond that.
Mm.
Writing in a vacuum isn't going to help that much, because it's so important to be able to have somebody hold that loving, nurturing space, and be equipped to know what to do if somebody
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a lot of pain. And so, I mean, I recognize there's so many, entrepreneurs doing so many different things. I'm just giving the example of what I do, but in many ways, what you're saying, no matter what it is, I mean, I don't teach courses for, in software, right? And yet it's the same process in many
It's the
ways.
same process. Uh, I see a few variations. If you want to teach a more of a consulting method, it has to go. I mean, it's really important that the person you certify knows the entire process and can go out and be intuitive and listen and add more things to it. If you're working with a course that you already have, that's such a good material that you can put in the hands of the clients and then work with the certification part just outside of that. So
Is it, do you need the license for certification, or what's the criteria for that? Do most people, can anybody who is a professional and has been doing something tried and true for a long time certify others without a
there are a few exceptions. Like if you are an amazing knee surgeon, you can't go out and certify people who are not doctors to be the knee
right?
surgeons. Yeah, so things like that. It needs to be uh, uh, a little conformed like that. But if you have a skill that you have developed that is not part of a higher board training where they would need to go do the certification, some authority, some board, yes, you can definitely do it yourself.
Mhm. Once they're certified, where do people find their clients?
I think that's an interesting part to put inside your certification training also.
Mhm.
Teach them how you have been running this kind of uh, business. What's the marketing that's been working for you? Where have you been finding your clients? And have discussions around that, because they might very well have great lists of people that they haven't even thought about working with in this concept, with or in this context. So
Right. What do you think about when it's a group and you're training a group of people to be certified? Can you have people who are just want to go through the course who aren't going there for certification, they're going there for healing? Can you have them both in the course at the same time? One wearing the certification hat as well as going through it, and the others just, going through the program in the same way, but for their own.
In that case, yes, you could for the core part of the program, but I would have extra sessions for the people getting certified.
Right. That makes sense.
About the front loading, about the business marketing, those kind of things that would be of no interest at all to the people going through the course for
That
for
makes
themselves.
sense. That makes sense, right. There could be people in the course themselves that might want to be mentored by the people who are being certified.
Exactly. So that could be, I mean, you could actually build in the case studies within that training.
Right.
By appointing your future experts to coach and help your other students.
Right. There's so many things to think about. I'm so glad you did this and that you're doing it.
Thank you.
No, truly. I mean, it's I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a trainer, and so it's brilliant because there are so many things to think about, which is probably why I wrote a facilitator's manual 10 years ago when I wrote, or 12 years ago when I wrote Rewrite Your Life, and I've never done anything with it since.
Yeah, and I've read it and it's excellent. That's going to be such a great foundation for what you're doing now.
Well, thank you so much. And maybe it's something that other people in other niches who are becoming certified, who are taking your courses, can offer their students as well to have a manual, right? Yeah, but I can see, I'm just so grateful that I didn't, in fact, try it on my own, because there's so many things that I didn't think of. So
well, I have a mantra, and that's everything's easy when you know how to do it. And that's, it's easy enough, but first you have to learn all those things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's great when there's coaches and teachers like yourself to teach us those kind of things, if that's what you're interested in. What would make, what kind of people, so that people who are listening to this would be able to identify if this would be that for them? Is it people who are, is it the obvious, or those who have been doing whatever it is that they're an expert at and are ready to change gears, or someone, like someone retiring or something else? But what have you found of other things that people who say, well, I hadn't thought of that, but maybe this is a good idea?
I'd say anyone who has reached results with what you're doing with your clients in a way that you can see that, oh, if only more people know how to do this, we could change the world together.
I love that. I love that, which is, I have to say, is my motivation. Like at a deeper level, is for sure that motivation. Yes, I want to carry on doing other things. And I also know the results that people get from this healing program. Over 5,000 people have taken it in these 20 years. And I have
that's amazing.
tons of, I have some phenomenal success stories, right, of people who've taken their stories of the past that were keeping them in the past and couldn't get beyond them, to live the life of their dreams, because they were able to heal those stories and move on and see the gifts and lessons that came with those stories. And so they were light years ahead of where they started. And so I know that that formula is tried and true and it works.
Yeah, and
So
what
I
a shame now if you would just like, okay, I'm retiring, that's gone.
I
Like,
know. And so no, I don't want it to die on the vine. I want other people
yeah,
to, yeah, if
you
they're
definitely
inspired.
have a legacy here to share with the world.
Yeah,
Mm.
right. So that's a great reason why people, it's the greatest motivation. That's what, usually the motivation for people who want to write memoir, people, so they can share what they've learned for people who've gone through some similar circumstances, so they don't have to struggle or have the same kind of challenges because they've learned things, they have wisdom of what they
Mm.
can pass on. It's often that motivation. If I could help one person through my experience, is what they often say, then it's worth it. So
Yeah.
worth it. So Anne, are there other things that you would like to share that we haven't covered that I haven't thought to even ask?
Oh, I have so much to share, but I will be sharing more in my 2-day course coming up August 11 and 12. So if anyone would be interested in that, you can find more about that on my webpage, which
Okay.
is expertcoalition.com.
All right. Well, we're heading into, today's August 1st. Okay,
Yeah,
guys.
it's coming up soon.
It's coming up really soon. So if this
Mm.
speaks to you, get in touch with, go on that website and get in touch with Anne really
Yeah,
quickly.
and if you come to my website, I also have some uh, assessments you can take to see, is this really for me? Am I ready to do a certification program?
Mhm.
So please get in touch. I love conversations, as you might have
Oh,
noticed.
I can see that. Yes, you're so
Yeah.
natural at it. Oh my gosh. And I mean, I'm just so impressed with what you, not just what you're teaching, but how you came to do what you do on a sailboat, traveling the world and visiting so many countries and teaching what you teach. And just, like I said, it's been hard enough on land and becoming
Mm.
yeah, quite an adventure. And will you continue it that way once COVID's over?
Life is an adventure. So yes, I'm going down to my boat in, I think, October,
Mhm.
and we'll see what happens.
Right.
We have a lot of plans.
I love it. I love it.
Mm.
Don't you? Life is wonderful that way.
Yeah.
Wonderful that way to be able to just have that freedom. I'm so glad that you were able to do that, and you and your husband to make that dream come true for yourselves. You said you wanted to do it for a long, long time,
Mm.
and leaving the corporate world to do something else, and not knowing whether it's hairdressing or or
Mm.
walking dogs in Paris.
Well,
Yeah.
I've found my place in life, and it keeps evolving, and that's the fun thing. Because that's what I noticed when I had been teaching my literary consultants. I sort of made myself redundant. I saturated the small market of my country, and I'm like, now what? Oh, maybe I can help other people do what I did. So that's what I've been doing for the past few years.
Wow, that is so
Mm.
fantastic. So fantastic for that same reason, right? So that other people could do what they love and have those skill sets
Mhm.
that you teach. Yeah. So I'm so excited because I gotta be in that course.
Yeah, and I'm so excited for your program. I must say, it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for coming on today. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And I'm looking forward to everybody else who will be joining us and to
Thank you
learning.
so much, Junie.
Yeah, you're welcome.